Welcome to another episode of DC Domingo. I had to change the little logo because I had a great idea for it. And also, because I'm basically, speaking on behalf of minorities, and I want to get the, minority voices in there, but also in the realm of nerd culture, the pop kids are the Disney kids. So I always saw myself as like a minority within a minority within a minority. Little did I know that on YouTube there is basically like a movement with the fandom menace and people who don't like any kind of diversity. Angry white folks, they are claiming the name diverse. So my logo is now for a little bit more direct. So it's Direct Comics Podcast, DC Domingo, on Domingo. So there you go. But yeah, it's a cool logo. I'm also gonna try and do another, not disclaimer, but catching up people to speed, because I find myself repeating a lot of things that the normies out there don't really know about DC Comics. So I'm going to have a disclaimer addendum. So that'll be fun. Anyways, so we are going to cover a couple of things. All the negative bullshit in the past couple of months. I have a new section called The Rotting. It's what I used to call taking out the trash. And then, another section for news that you might have missed. It's a little bit shorter, but it's kind of cool stuff. My main topic, of course, is going to be the Snyder Cut. We're also going to talk about a couple of the things that happened in the exciting world of DC. Next episodes, since quarantine is happening, we're not going to get a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So, my plan is to have one episode dedicated to the animated cartoons, the ones that tie it all together. Another episode is going to be about the TV shows, because I have to admit that after the giant crossover, I was kind of worn out. Basically, up to the crossover, there was, 4 shows that you had to kind of catch up on, like The Flash, Black Lightning, Legends, Arrow. So it was a lot. And also Batwoman, which I got to a certain point where the crossover happened. So yeah, I need to dedicate more time to television. Hopefully the episodes are available. If not, I'll have to wait for them to arrive on Netflix at some point. But you will get a nice review of what I think about the TV shows. Anyways, this is the intro. Let's get cracking. Alright, this is episode 55, and we are talking about a lot of cool stuff. Now, before I kind of get started, I want to give a shout out to The Cultured Nerd. It's a nice website where they cover things in an unbiased way. I also like Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, IOU, which translates to Inside of You. He has, I've, started listening to his podcast, and it's wonderful. He deals with celebrities in a way that is more personal, talking about mental health and well-being. I know that he played an evil, bald guy in Smallville, Lex Luthor. But his podcast is really humane, and he's really cool, and he interviews people in a nice manner. So go ahead, and give him a subscribe. There was this also amazing work of art. I don't know who it belongs to, but it was kind of paying a homage to the medical staff, showing DC heroes. So if you know anybody who is in the medical profession, pass it on to them. Maybe make them a thank you card with this amazing artwork. Thank your fellow medical employees during this pandemic. Alrighty, and this section, I kind of wanted to make a new section, just like the other one, but this one's more like news that happened that might be kind of cool to know, and it's cool stuff for you to know, for me to hear, and kind of pass it through the grapevine and such. One of the funny things that happened was like, Tom Taylor, if you enjoyed the second part of the Earth 2 series from New 52, or Injustice, that's his better known series, he has this really cool thing going on where, like, he gets confused with Tom King, and it's a running joke. But anyways, he posted this thing about, like, somebody in Turkey, Turkish television, they were pointing out the deceased storyline when coronavirus was hitting. And I think in the comments it was stated that it wasn't so much like the Turkish media was like sensationalizing it or anything like that. They were just more like, hey, this is a coincidence. So at least, they had a really cool understanding, and somebody, Googled the series, and they kind of saw like last Comic-Con, the teaser and stuff like that. So that is pretty cool. And I think, Tom King kind of chimed in later, but that's something unique and cute. Earlier in, the weeks leading up to, the big reveal for the Snyder Cut, there was a very moment of catharsis for Ben Affleck. He wanted to go to Good Morning America and talk about, his sobering and dealing with alcoholism. And we have Jimmy Palmiotti. He's an amazing creator. I follow him and Amanda Connor, his wife. They're amazing. They've done some really cool stuff. She is very much responsible for the modern version of Harley Quinn. They have amazing omnibus, giant volumes of all their comics together. Check him out. But anyways, he kind of chimes in, and he's like a cool guy, kind of like the cool uncle. I saw one of their Instagram quarantine podcasts, and they're like, we don't have kids, our lifestyle it suits us this way. It allows us to do more comics and artwork. So, give it a follow, give them some time, and check them out. They are pretty cool. In the same vein of this kind of interview, there was a lot of love by Ben Affleck working with Zack Snyder on Batman vs. Superman. It was something that he said it was lacking when filming Justice League, because there was a lot more pressure, and there was a lot of less creativity while shooting that, and also the end result. So I think this video is on YouTube. It's part of Stars Reminisce, their body of work. Check it out. It's kind of interesting. Also, a big shout out to Walt, Uber Kryptonian. He's always been a nice representative of the community. Give him a follow too. This was pulled out of the comic books. Somebody kind of did a nice take on the I Tried cardboard sign that you saw at the intro of Joss Whedon's Justice League attempt, and it went viral, and apparently it was pulled from the comic that this was featured in, but you can find it online. That's how I found out. thought it was kind of interesting. I'm like, wow, somebody was allowed to make this. I wonder what's changing over there, and we know what changed. Now, we here don't just plug in DC related stuff. We also like independent stuff. We grew up with Ninja Turtles, and that you can't get more independent than that. So if you haven't seen Vin Diesel Bloodshot, definitely go check out some of the comics or check out the movie. I know that it was horrible timing when the movie came out because quarantine just hit. I know that Birds of Prey was pulled earlier from the cinema for that reason too. So, we want to help out independent labels like Valiant Comics. So, go ahead and give Bloodshot a chance. Now, this is one of those kind of stories that we don't really hear much about. I was very much lucky to have a stay-at-home pay for my work, and it was great because I haven't taken a vacations for years. I think in 2014, I took a week off for Comic-Con, and maybe a week off for E3, but that's about it. In 2015, when we went to France, I worked up to the point of going over there. There was some major jet lag when we got there, and I think on the third day we planned nothing, just to kind of wander about, and that's the day that we were just so tired and we just kind of fell asleep. But we got some pizza from next door, and that's about it. But yeah, we did go to France in 2014, but it was tiring. And then we came back, and it was go to work again. And then in 2016 we lost my mom, and that was not vacation at all. So this has been like a blessing, even though it's kind of messed up that the whole world is suffering. So in this time of crisis, it would be really cool if we had corporations that care, but unfortunately they don't. Last year, Bernie Sanders kind of had to force Disney theme parks to pay their workers minimum wage. And this year, this kind of news kind of went unnoticed because Disney stopped paying 100,000 workers just to save them $500 million in a month. And, it's the land of make believe, the labeled as the best place on earth, the happiest place on earth. It's the land of Marvel superheroes, and this is what happens. It's the land of Star Wars, and this is how things get made. And it's really unfortunate because we saw a lot of great companies and corporations kind of stand up to the challenge of taking care of their employees. And this is pretty bad. It's related to comic books, because it means that while the corporation wants to save money, they're not really putting their employees at ease. So if you want to support a corporation that doesn't take care of their employees, hey, that's not very superhero of you. And I think this is also related, because I think you should know this. Variety reported that Netflix is now worth more than Disney as a streamer's stock hits all-time high. And if if you're fortunate or unfortunate to see Tiger King, that kind of hit at the right time, and people were like, what the fuck is this, right? We didn't see anything like that from Disney. We saw teenage trolls with metal. That didn't cause that big of a deal. Speaking of trolls, you probably should know this. Trolls pissed off a lot of cinemas because it was premiered in-house. So basically on Apple or Amazon Prime, you could just rent the movie for $20. They didn't offered to sell, but they just rent $20, and that pissed off the two biggest chains from cinema. There are a lot of great YouTubers out there that kind of delve more into it, but it will definitely affect superheroes going forward. And it kind of ties into the decision of HBO Max to have the Snyder Cut. But more on that later. Definitely go out and check out and stay informed, because if you want cinema to survive, but you also want creativity, you're going to support in-house streaming age. So it's an interesting time. This one was kind of cute. John Wesley Shipp, the original live-action Flash from the 1990s. If you haven't seen that TV show, it's really cute. It's really awesome. It's got good Danny Elfman music. It's got Mark Hamill as a trickster. Wonderful 90s hair and styles. But anyways, he liked this amazing post about why the Flash suit makes sense. And if you've seen the pilot episode of The Flash, you kind of see John Wesley Shipp as the Flash, run for the first time and just tear his freaking clothes because of the friction. He basically looked like disheveled, and he had to call somebody for help because he landed somewhere else. I think Smallville also did that, but it's pretty cool, kind of showing how the understanding of these characters on film are kind of starting to be appreciated and loved by multiple actors. I thought you might like that. Speaking of multiple actors, we have the actor who plays Jason Todd on the not Teen Titans, but just Titans on the DC Universe app. He took over Instagram yesterday Friday actually, and he had a lot of fun. There was a lot of crowbar jokes, and he over here he's posting with the Joker outfit as quote unquote my best friend. So he has a great sense of humor. It was fun. He answered a lot of fan questions. Go ahead to Instagram and check that out. This is funny. There is a beer called Master Bruce, which I really want to get, and I'll definitely review it for you guys. I'm very, very interested. And just very, very late breaking news. While we're trying to figure out what's going on with the Snyder Cut, looks like Jared Leto is really impressed. And he retweeted like a very exclusive image of him. And it's very exciting. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. If I am lucky enough to not go through a lot of hoops and stuff, and if I can find like a really nice affordable version of the Joker statue, I am going to add it to my collection, dude. I really like his Joker, and if they're going to bring him back and there's going to be more of him in the Batman movies and another Suicide Squad or whatever down the line they have, I am fucking for it. So that's what I have so far for the news. This section used to be called Taking Out the Trash. Now, because trash has so many usefulness, like recycling or, finding cool stuff in there, I kind of wanted to change the name of the section to the Rotting, because this is like beyond toxic. Toxicity, you can put some base in there and kind of clean it up and, try and take care of it. But this is just rotting. And, with Spider-Man, there is an amazing quote of, with great power comes great responsibility. And whenever people say, oh, that fan base is toxic or that fan base is toxic, you kind of go, okay, yeah, there's some people who are doing that. But what happens with people who work for IGN, the AV Club, or those kind of news outlets that are not, MSNBC, CNN, the big leagues, like B-list online presence. They often don't they don't give a fuck sometimes, so they want all the power to just be on a microphone, say whatever the fuck they want, and they don't want any of the responsibility. Meanwhile, holding all the fan bases accountable and responsible for any little thing that one individual does, while those same people in those B type of media are not held accountable. And the wonderful thing about the internet is that the internet never fucking forgets. So this is why this new section that I like to call it, the rotting, is called that, because it's rotting news. I happen to be a really great appreciator of journalism. I watched France 24, DW from Germany, the BBC, a bunch of Latino news, TOI, Times of India, just to try and get diversify. There's even several reorders, news outlets that post stuff about Africa. If people care about it, they should go and subscribe on Twitter. But yeah, I like news. I don't like people projecting, and that's what's happening here. So anyways, this was called Taking Out the Trash, but it's more of the rotting. And how do I put this? We're going to start not a long time ago. Subway, the sandwich, was very supportive of, Zack Snyder, and I think they even donated some money to charity. But somehow that pissed off this writer, and this is what I, wrote, because sometimes, you read The Onion. This is the AB Club. You read The Onion for, good shit. Not to shit on, somebody trying to raise money for a charity, which is fucking weird, right? If Subway sponsors, a Zack Snyder thing, why the fuck are you going to be negative about raising money? I don't get it. There's so much toxicity up there. It's just, you guys need to be funny, and that's not funny. So that's one of the reasons. And speaking of toxicity, we have this director saying, "Hey, I received this hateful fan message," and I'm like, okay, the second word, it's not typed correctly. They didn't even capitalize the word I. And you kind of okay, director, what is your point of singling out this, not only this individual, this toxicity, but what are you getting out of it? I'm pretty sure J.J. Abrams gets 1,000 more of these a day for whatever reason, right? So why are you posting this? And, for me, it's you have to verify your sources, all right? So this hater is complaining about, putting someone who doesn't look like the character as the character, right? And clearly, that's not the message of the movie he is praising, as this is my reply over here. So it's a hater who cites movies that he doesn't understand. Therefore, this hate is validated by posting it online. It's if somebody goes, "Hey, I hate Mexican food because they have corn tortillas," and you're like, "Well, what the fuck, dude? That's what they have." I was that's it's a non-argument. You can't really be well, I get hate mail. It's that's not hate mail. That's just an idiot. So, whatever. And catching on the coattails of this outrage, we have, another person who's hey, this unknown person also sent me this. But it's it's not it's not a threat. It's more hey, go to hell. And you kind of go, really? Because like hell doesn't really exist. I mean, it's you might as well say, hey, go to Valhalla. Go to Middle Earth, you fucking nerd. It's like, okay, sure, I'll go to Middle Earth. And like that was the worst of these two messages, and that is definitely funny to me. Over here, I'm going to play you this little clip that it's from the same person complaining, from Jody's Corner, who now I'm going to forever now called Jody is cornered because he's just like lashing out at his fans. He's lashing out at any kind of people that don't send him money. Like if you send him money, he'll do like a little dance and he'll give you a shout out in his like YouTuber show. And it's like, dude, if you're losing money, don't fucking be a dick. So here's the clip.
Trash, Andy. You can have multiple versions of all those characters. What are you talking about? What? Multiple versions? What is this? Don't give away sounds trash, Andy.
All right. So what does that tell you about this guy? It's like he doesn't know shit, right? Like apparently you can't have multiple versions of your characters. And, I replied with the Spider-Verse movie, which won an Oscar, right? Also, a very famous Marvel comic called Days of Future Past. What was that? Multiple fucking versions of your heroes. Remember Marvel What If? That's what that is about. What is the Ultimate Universe for Marvel Comics? I mean, you having multiple versions of your characters, it's part of comic book history. And then you have this idiot kind of going, that makes your universe trash. And I'm like, wow, this guy has like no fucking grasp on anything. And even after the announcement, he's still kind of a hater. And he has allied himself with this dude who kind of was accused of sexual harassment. And then because he saved some screenshots, he's like, oh, see, I'm cleared. I'm clean. Those accusations were false. I'm a fucking saint. But, he's never really, like, answered to this. One of his ex-employees, Seaman Miller, 007, on Twitter, he kind of goes that, more in depth. It's like, well, it's not just that he was cleared. It's that it's an ongoing thing, like, it was like the behavior that he was a deplorable pig who has no respect for women. It was like a behavior. So it wasn't just this one incident. He's like, haha, I'm clear. He's like, no, he's just, accused by his employee of just doing this shit over and over again. And, of course, with this, and he was kind of like, he went on YouTube around March saying that there was no Snyder Cut, and now that, he's kind of show that, that's unproven, he's kind of going on like an anti-crusade against everybody who supported him originally and tried to give him a second shot. And him and Jody Sconer have tried to do this, so for instance, like, the outrage culture of like, hey, how are you rewarding the DC fans for this? When I received one angry message, my reply was like, well, have you seen what Mark Maron talks about? He's a comedian that was like, kind of talking about Joker, because he was in Joker for a few seconds, and he was, thrilled to be in a movie that wasn't fucking childish, in his words. And all the Marvel fans went at him, and he replied with like a nice stand-up comedy bit about how Marvel is a religion. And my stance have always been like, if you're gonna vilify if you're gonna vilify like the Pepsi generation in favor of Coke, or if you're gonna vilify Coke in in favor of the Pepsi generation. It's like, you kind of need to be neutral if you're going to be called a journalist. Otherwise, you're just a dick. And I happen to have, April 30th, 2016, I happen to have Facebook memories of something that happened to poor George Takei, who's a member of the OG Star Trek and a wonderful ambassador for the LGBT rights. He was really upset with a casting decision that Marvel did, and unfortunately I didn't record all of the replies, but you can see the first one, people defending Marvel. So, Mark Maron is right. You can be in a situation where, you can be like a LGBT, you can be like a liberal and stuff like that, but if you speak against Marvel, those fans will turn against you really, really quick. Whereas, we have seen 3 years since the Snyder Cut where, like, the media can just be a dick to Zack Snyder and DC films, but we as fans can't really voice our opinions without, like, being singled out. So it's kind of a difficult situation when most of the media have taken a side because it profits them with clickbait and stuff. We have this other one who kind of, typed this, and my response was like, hey man, just because, like, people are like this, oh, you're talking to the fans, oh shit, so again, you have people, comparing you to some kind of sectarian group, and you have lazy people like this lady who kind of goes, hey, I'm gonna blame Zack Snyder for a film he didn't fucking write. And I'm like, yo, here I am, a Mexican doing the job of a lazy white woman by Googling who the fuck wrote this movie, and it's another two white people. So, I don't know. It feels awkward when you kind of have to put people in their place who don't know shit, The other one, it's this dude who says, like, oh, bullies are winning. And I'm just like, I don't think you know what that word means. My reply was like, like, it's not so much that, like, it's annoying, their horrible take. It's not like you're walking down the street and, like, somebody punches you in the face and be like, oh, Doyle rules, that's from Happy Gilmore. That's a bully. I'm just having a visual, somebody walking down the street and punching another guy and be like, release a Snyder Cut. It's like, that shit doesn't happen, dude. We're like the most fucking chill people. So, the hashtags on Twitter are used by everybody. So, for instance, if you have somebody's like, hey, I like this film by, Roman Polanski, everybody is like, hey, fuck you. Hashtag me too. That motherfucker is a sexual harasser. So that's not somebody going, oh, that person's a bully because you're reminded, Roman Polanski of being a fucking sexual abuser. No, that's not a bully. You're using the hashtags as they're supposed to be used. When I go to news and you have like a president who constantly fucking lies, we use the same hashtags as everybody else. Like, why are your fucking taxes and shit like that? Why are you golfing? We're almost close to 100,000 dead. So didn't you fucking say you're not gonna golf? Vote blue 2020. So when people in politics use the hashtags, it's not called bullying, right? Or sports, like, hey, that was not a penalty. That goal should be null and void, But anyways, so that's kind of like where I have to kind of like put people in their place. We have over here fucking Ace Ventura as a lifestyle choice, Max Scoville, who was screenshot saying some really fucked up shit. And all of a sudden he is upset that somebody reminded him of that, and he goes like, well, why do you care? I made some jokes years ago. You should be happy. And no, dude, like, this is a white dude who has a job in fucking liberal San Francisco, where like so many more disturbing people could get a job, right? I'm pretty sure, like, somebody could do his job 10 times better. And this is a person who doesn't want his job to be held accountable. If he had been talking shit about like either us minorities or like a group that people give a fuck about, he'd be out of a job. So because a lot of people tolerate toxicity to kind of promote like, who the sponsor of their content is, they kind of get ahead of themselves, So for instance, like currently right now, the Ford company is under scrutiny because Trump was there, and he didn't mention anything about the shady history of Ford. And you see people promoting other vehicles, or when Tesla put his foot in his mouth, and then all of a sudden people are like, fuck Tesla cars, Same rules applies here. It's like, if you're representing a brand like IGN and we're kind of like a toxic white dude, and IGN does not tolerate toxic white dudes online commenting, but why does IGN hires them and keeps them on staff? Like, that's my point. It's like all these people are either YouTube personalities or are employed by someone who might fire them. And I think that's really disconcerting, because people jump the gun to paint us in the Snyder Cut as like, oh, you guys are toxic. It's like, no, I grew up in Mexico, where we had like a one-party dictatorship, and they always told you, obey the party, don't speak up, just take it. But that's totalitarianism, dude. Like, we should not live with injustice in the world, especially if we fucking read comic books, right? So me as a minority, when somebody tells me to shut the fuck up, I'm kind of go, no. Like, white people had so much fucking possession of these properties and comics, and now the media. Since we don't have that representation online, we're gonna have the representation as a fan base. And if we have like maybe one or two people defending us online, fuck them. That's why I tell you, like, if you don't believe me, go to Twitter, look at all the replies after the announcement. You'll see nothing but thank yous. You won't see any fucking toxicity at all. And people who kind of betted on the wrong horse, or kind of skew things in the way that it's now backfiring, like Rotten Tomatoes, you get responses like me. For instance, like, I purchased the director's cut of Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, which the original, as of today, is now 40 years old. So I posted my reply as this, just peeling the sticker off from, hey, it's rated fresh. I was like, I don't give a fuck about that. I know what artistic integrity is, and Dr. Sleep, director's cut, is fucking amazing. And, yeah. And if you know anything about Rotten Tomatoes, here it is. These are the executives that parent company Fandango used to work for Disney. And nobody has investigated this, because if you go to Rotten Tomatoes as an executive that used to work for Disney, and you still have Disney stock, your Disney stock is going to grow if you trash Universal, DreamWorks, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and you kind of go, oh yeah, the fucking Lion King, yeah, 100%, it's great. Like, nobody in the FCC like looks into this. So, which is why you get like fans going, "Hey, there's some, shouldn't like you investigate this shit?" You know, it would be like if somebody worked for Tesla and then they go to work for the Trump administration, and all of a sudden, you know, other cars wanting to break into the electric car business are given bad reviews. You would be like, "Hey, what the fuck's going on?" Right? So, and we are talking about billions of dollars with these corporations and superheroes. So, again, it's not paranoia. It's just shit that goes unchecked, you know, business as usual.
Everybody in our industry occasionally has to play softball, occasionally has to, you know, look the other way a little bit. Everybody has to do it.
Wait, which one? What? Like a movie
in the sense that,
or...
you know, I hated a movie, but I won't say that I hated the movie. Or an actor behaved a sort of way, and you don't want to, you know, put it out there that happened.
Right, because you might not get the next review.
Right. So to some degree, everybody in our industry that is a part of this quote unquote access media has to sort of decide which battles they want to pick.
All right. So now that the rotting is out of the way, my fucking God, let's do some cool stuff. It all started with the Birds of Prey watch along. It was started on Twitter, and it was fun. It was unfortunate that the movie was cut short in cinemas and was given new life on digital. A lot of people who, you know, wanted this movie to make $1 billion looked for any fucking excuse to hate on this movie. Like Suicide Squad, this is one of those movies that I was just like, this will be a nice addition. It's not like a main course like Wonder Woman or, you know, any of that, but it was great. And the fact that in 2020, Warner Brothers had 2 female-centric projects as their main focus for superheroes kind of says something. I was expecting to see a lot more coverage in the news, but, you know, you can kind of see how they swing sometimes when it's not their brand of choice. The Birds of Prey watch-along was actually pretty cool, and I think a little bit shorter after that. We got more. Like, there was one for Shazam, and then one for Batman vs. Superman. But going back to Birds of Prey, originally it did really well, but as of lately, it's doing fucking amazing. This one has legs, and it looks like we might actually get, you know, Gotham City Sirens, and more Harley Quinn. Interestingly enough, if you remember from the news section, Jared Leto is kind of on board to do more Joker stuff. You know, he posted something on Twitter like he's down to see more of Joker stuff, so we could potentially see Joker return to Gotham City and try to reclaim, you know, the underworld now that, you know, spoiler alert, Black Mask is quote-unquote dead. I mean, he fucking blew up. Of course, the comic book, you can always bring him back, you know, with magic, or, you know, the Court of Owls. That would be my my choice for bringing back dead people, because those fuckers are manipulative. Anyways, so the good news is that Birds of Prey is doing magnificent, and the online video game DC World Online also had a nice chapter featuring the Birds of Prey in an episodic form, so check that out if you want to. It's pretty fun. Along with the Shazam movie, we learned a couple of things, such as the use of a practical giant fucking bus that was hanging from the bridge. I was like, fuck, you know. And honestly, Shazam is one of those movies that, like, it wasn't, you know, a giant whoa spectacle kind of a movie. It was definitely a smaller one, and it delivered on the family aspect of, you know, the character. I would like to see them implement the family more in the sequel. I haven't seen the deleted scenes even, or the documentary. So I need to do that, and then maybe do a voiceover commentary for Shazam. The other news is that poor Ruby Rose has decided to walk away from the Batwoman CW series. And it's not that it wasn't doing good on the ratings because we have a season 2 confirmed. What I'm guessing, and this was, my hunch from what I saw, is that most of these TV shows shoot in Vancouver, and they have a long-standing relationship with the stunt coordinators, the stunt crew. For some reason, they decided to film part of this in Chicago, to kind of mirror Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And I think that's what happened, because Ruby Rose got injured really bad in one of those episodes. I mean, she was almost left without the ability to walk. Miraculously, that didn't happen. But I can imagine that someone was like, if you're going to push me to do some heavy stunts or do something more physical, I might injure myself. I don't want to continue this. The trades are not saying it's a money issue. There's usually a scoop on that. So my guess is that it has to do with her health and well-being, which is great. She needs to take care of that. The actress who might replace her, I think there was a wonderful British actress who played a villain in Krypton season 1 and 2. She is perfect for it. I think that she's been suggested by some people on social media, so we'll see what happens. StarGirl premiered on the DC Universe app on Monday. It's like it's a reinvention of the Star-Spangled Kid and Starman, a character from way back in the days of the Justice Society of America. The pilot was pretty cool. The director is from Smallville and other, I think, Arrow as well, and Flash TV shows. So he's kind of a veteran of television. He's pretty good. The only two problems that I had with the episode are, it's a tiny spoiler alert. The protagonist, Courtney, carries a little picture of her missing dad in like a little heart-shaped necklace. So you can imagine this person saw this picture and memorized, the face. So there's a scene where she sees that same face in a superhero costume in a photograph of the Justice Society of America. And the writing called for the revelation of like, oh, your father was a superhero. Several minutes after making that direct connection with the photographs, like, we as audience have only seen this character once, several minutes ago, and we recognize that, this character was a superhero. But in the series, it's kind of like, it's written so that realization comes like a minute or two later. But I can see the director trying to be like, what the fuck, this is inconsistent. So that was one of my nitpicking things. The other thing is that, the hero's patriotic, Stars and Stripes, and there isn't really like an explanation why someone would be afraid of someone named Stripey. There's even a comedic take on that. This could have been easily solved in the writing, and I think like a stronger director would have been like, hey, just say something like, it was the 80s, we were fighting commies, that made them afraid. Simple, because that would have made 80s espionage between Cold War stuff fucking interesting. It would have also set up apart the character as a patriotic person. So anyways, that's minor nitpickings here and there. Besides that, it seems promising. It definitely has a different tone than Doom Patrol, because that fucking show is amazing. And it's not as dark as Swamp Thing. I like my darkness. I don't know. Swamp Thing was violent, sure. It was dark. But there was something that really made me uneasy was Swamp Thing, being taken apart, on the table, on an operating table. Like, I know he's a plant, but it's just, shit like that makes me uneasy. I know there was a similar thing happening to Beast Boy in Titans, where I don't like people being strapped to any kind of apparatus and people fucking with their bodies. Like, it's something that makes me squeamish, and it's disturbing. It's not like scary or gory. It's just more like, that's just really disturbing. But anyways, looking forward to what they're gonna do with the CGI. I was impressed that Solomon Grundy was in there. It's always been my argument when people tell me that the Hulk could never be on, ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm like, dude, the fuck, CW has, King Kong basically, and King Shark, so whatever. But I will have to, give you more of a skinny on what I think about the TV shows of DC in another episode altogether. I think it deserves it. Justice League War, the animated one. Fuck. That was fucking brutal. It caught me off guard, like how fucking brutal and dark that was. I was like, man, did Jay Olivia direct this? This is fucking dark. But no, I was like, okay, it's Sam Liu probably, because he's done some really good shit too. No, Lauren Montgomery, does she directed this? Because she's fucking badass too, But no, this was written and directed by two people that I've never heard of before, and it made me really fucking happy that DC is getting more talent. The usual suspects of animation were not there. We have someone new and exciting, so again, I'm going to take a deeper dive into these creators and do an entire episode for the animated ones. It's fairly interesting that The Flash is going to be used to restart another series of cartoons. I know that Dr. Manhattan joining the DC Universe animated would be fucking amazing. It just happened in the comics. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Speaking of which, hey guys, we saved Swamp Thing. The only drawback is that it's going to the CW. I am hoping that the crew behind Constantine takes over, because Constantine was a really great series, and it had a nice balance of dark and light. And I'm not talking about like thematic. I'm talking about sometimes in Swamp Thing and the CW app, I have a 4K television. I don't know if it's streaming's fault, but sometimes the shadows and dark areas would just get muddy gray. Whereas in Constantine, it was crisp dark. And you can do that very easily with the type of equipment that you film and the contrast settings that you have in your cameras, and the cinematography can take care of that. So, hopefully they focus more on that level of quality. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We saved it. But now I'm like, so both Constantine and Swamp Thing are in the CW. I know that J.J. Abrams is doing Justice League Dark for HBO Max. What's going to happen? Is it going to be like a share thing? I don't know. Anyways, to our main story, Zack Snyder's Justice League. So it all started with the Batman versus Superman commentary, which it was 3 hours long, man. It's quite a commitment. We woke up at 8, before that, made coffee, got ourselves situated, and, I don't think Zack had done one of these in a while, because, he paused it a couple times and to drink water, poor guy. When I did my VBS commentary, I think I did maybe an hour, and then I was like, okay, I need to take a break. Drink some water, rest my throat. Even when I do these kind of like podcasts, I still have to, take pauses and kind of take breaks. So it was kind of cool to watch. We learned a lot of cool things there, and he broke the internet because, he's like, man, somebody should make a sequel of that one, kind of like, whoa. So he kind of, planted the seed for things to come. So that's one of the things that got the ball rolling and people speculating like, oh, what's going to happen? Related to this, Jesse Eisenberg was doing an interview in France, and somebody asked him, like, hey, what's the one script that has impressed you? And he was like, well, the script for Batman vs. Superman, written by Oscar winner, Chris Terrio, there was a lot of layers to that film, and there was a lot of references to mythology and world building, and he said that he hadn't written many things like that, which is kind of great. His Lex Luthor persona was basically like, you can see that he behaved differently to different people. When he was condescending to the senator, you could tell that he was like both, sexist and classist. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? The way that he was kind of like almost kind to his assistant and then ended up, blowing her up. This character had layers, and he acted a little bit quirky and crazy when he was on stage, kind of like putting on a show. You had like Jason Momoa being hella hyped. He went to visit Mark Wright, his trainer. And the side note, if you have like appreciation for Mark Wright, check him out. And Jim Jones, really good people for workout routines. But Jason Momoa has always been a fan of DC properties. Here you have him be as a BIP in Suicide Squad. He just doesn't give a damn what the critic says. He supports them. And it was very telling, because a couple of days before the commentary for Man of Steel, we had this amazing billboard from HBO Max that said, we got the heroes, and there's the Justice League. So we saw a lot of Justice League promos. And interestingly enough, they were not shots from that Joss Whedon shot on the theatrical fast-paced one. No, there were like shots from that you could tell that Zack Snyder shot them, and you're like, well, Wagner shot them, but from his film, and it's just very, very interesting. So the morning of the podcast, again, we got up early. We set up the DVD because I wanted to have, the Wi-Fi free. I wore my Zack Snyder Justice League hoodie that my wonderful girlfriend bought me for Christmas. So that was great. I posted it on social media that, we were ready to go release the Snyder Cut. And it was wonderful because on Vero, there were kind of, I don't know if it's lag from the broadcasting, but Zack Snyder would always like try and cue it up and be like, okay. So in this one, there was only a couple points that he did that, which is great. The show did start it a little bit later, but I think they were just ramping up the servers. These are the people that showed up. There are some on them that I don't recognize, but that's pretty cool. It's a very diverse crowd of people. Again, a lot of Latinos there. I see Chris Hughes. He's usually in the groups that I'm in, so that's pretty cool. And when it came time to announce it, we couldn't believe it. It was pretty exciting. I got to take this snapshot of it. So yeah, it was, man, I was pretty hungry. I think I was stuffing my face with some breakfast, and I was just like, holy fuck. The most incredible thing about this is that a giant corporation like AT&T, like, it's actually replying to like fans and being like, yeah, this is cool. Like, what? Like, most of us were like, did somebody like take over that account? What's going on? No, dude, but it was every like, okay, to have the accounts from like, TNT, Looney Tunes, all these like subsidiary of Warner Brothers be really chill and supportive of the Zack Snyder thing was ridiculous. I think, look, I don't want to rain on the parade or anything, but like, I think people were like, okay, we need to go to all social media accounts, all hands on deck, because somebody might have said like, oh, we don't trust these people. These people are rowdy. And what we got was like a lot of love because we showed a lot of love. And I think from that point on, I think people should look at the Zack Snyder Cut not as like, oh my God, they were, insufferable. They wouldn't shut up. It's like, well, when you demand justice, like, do you tell people to shut the fuck up? No. You kind of applaud that. So I think, people in Hollywood were expecting, I don't know, like fucking the Fandom Menace or some shit like that. But no, we're better than the Fandom Menace, dude. We're not assholes. So for instance, like this wonderful writer, Jonita Davis, wrote on Medium, can the Justice League Snyder Cut prove whitewashing to be real? Because like, here's what happened. All right, a lot of the characters that were cut out were minorities. So for instance, we have General Swanwick that we've seen since Man of Steel. We always kind of suspected he was Martian Manhunter. Boom. Looks like that's going to be the case. We also had the love interest, Iris West, for The Flash. Also, person of color, Kiersey Clemens. Right? Well, so that was kind of like, hey, wait a minute. What happened? Also, Cyborg's mom was cut out of there. Not to mention, the Atom, Ryan Choi, played by Orion Lee. And also Silas Stone was giving a much smaller role. Cyborg, the protagonist, who Zack Snyder described as the heart of the Justice League. And because, he's made up of a mother box, that's the key to the whole thing. So yeah, go ahead and read that article, because a lot of people are, whatever recent acts they have to grind on this, they kind of forget as minorities, I think somebody from the Mary Sue was like, do we fucking need this? And I'm like, do you care about black people? I was like, what the fuck? Get yourself informed, or like hire us minorities, man. It kind of proves that you can be like pro something, but you're like so Disney fed. Like if you only eat McDonald's, you're not going to appreciate anything else, right? So speaking of that, check out Unilad from the UK. Cameron Frew wrote this amazing article about how Justice League Snyder Cut will rewrite superhero history. And it's quite right. A lot of the idiots who kind of go, well, now that Zack Snyder needs additional photography, kind of proves that the Snyder Cut never existed. I'm like, actually, that's not true, because a lot of the stuff that is going to be changed is stuff that Marvel ripped off, such as like having 2 parts to your superhero movie, killing off most of your heroes in part 1 and using time travel to bring them back in part 2. A lot of those elements were already previewed in the Nightmare sequence in Batman vs. Superman. So whenever we kind of say like, well, somebody must have leaked that script, this picture of somebody, quote unquote, comes up. I'm not saying that this somebody, it's this person, but again, whenever people online kind of go, hey, who could have leaked the script? This somebody comes up. So until, we get a confirmation otherwise, that's what that somebody is going to be. And it's very quick that we might actually get the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. And if you recall, it was teased that the big bad guy, that Enchantress, was trying to bring into the world was Steppenwolf. So, yeah. How fucking cool would that be? Because she's part of the old gods, and she wants to bring a new god there. Amazing. And finally, we have somebody in the media bounding into comics, calling out, Screen Rant, Collider, Vulture, because these websites like Screen Rant, Collider, and Vulture have made a shitload of money promoting Disney material. They get exclusive, they get kickbacks, all that good shit. And all of a sudden, this kind of threatens their livelihood. And, I'm going to play this clip again of somebody talking about how this kind of wishy-washy happens. All right, so there you have it. So, anyways, there you go. That's all we have for you on this lengthy podcast. I'm probably going to do another one in a couple of weeks, because I think I'm going to make that new disclaimer, which is pretty fucking funny. And yeah, I'm getting fired up. So keep watching. DLC DC.